Hey, my name is James with First Home Inspectors. In this video, I wanted to review a home inspection report for new construction, kind of give you guys a feel of what to expect if you're buying a new home in Las Vegas. Here's what the home looks like. Two-story, I think is roughly 2,300 square feet home. First things first, home needed a final clean. There's a lot of dirt and debris everywhere. Usually we'll see that if we're about 3 days out from the closing date. They usually like to clean one last time before the homeowner moves in to make sure they've got just about everything. But typical dust and debris that we'll find in cabinets was found here. Here we had a leak at the landscape irrigation control valve. Not to be confused with the irrigation shutoff. Comes in a Christie box, so I call all these things Christie boxes. People have different names for them, but it's kind of like saying Kleenex, right? But basically, when I turned the water shutoff on, because it was shut off when I got there, a leak occurred right here. So this needs to be addressed before the homeowner moves in. Get that all taken care of. Next thing, we got missing dampers. So the other side of this damper is your kitchen range exhaust, right? Or your dryer exhaust. The new rule is that we want to have all this stuff kind of covered up. And the reason why is because on a windy day, wind will get blown into here and then into your home. So we spend all this time and money making the home as airtight as possible. And if we don't have a damper just to close off this, what is that, a 3-inch, diameter or radius opening, something like that, that's pretty massive. So we want to just make sure we get that cleared up before the homeowner moves in. Next thing, I want to ensure that this flue cap flange makes contact with the stucco surface. And then on top of that, I want to have this sealed up too. Anytime that we can prevent water from entering in a wall cavity, it's for the best. I'm not saying we're going to have a massive amount of water and it's going to cause a crazy amount of damage. But if we can tighten these things up right before move-in, right when the house is brand new, we can save ourselves a lot of issues 30 years down the road. After that, I made a note to the homeowner to tell him that you want to have your landscape irrigation control clock set properly. And the reason why is that when I go, and I'll show you guys something real fast. When I go, I'll go to the exterior here. And so this is in the off position, right? This is what it looks like when it's off. That's what it looks like when it's on. We got two shutoffs right here. When I turn this on and I hear every single drip irrigator going off at once, that lets me know that the controller that's in the garage isn't set properly, right? Like something's missing, and I'll show you, hopefully I can find it. That means this guy right here isn't set properly, because there shouldn't be a way where I can turn that on and immediately start hearing water. This should stop the water from flowing out of, excuse me one second, out of this guy, right? That device in the garage messes with this guy. That's where all these wires are going to, and it keeps it closed, right? And it should only be open for I think 3 hours a day or something like that. So if it's open right now, it's a very good chance that it's not set properly. What are the chances that I'm here actually when it's supposed to be dripping? I believe it's supposed to do all the irrigation and stuff before sunlight comes out, and if I'm there at 9 or 10 o'clock, I just know that's wrong. So, and the reason why this is important is that if the homeowner moves in, right, and it's not set properly, the Las Vegas Valley Water District can tell when your irrigation isn't set properly, and you can get a massive fine for that. If you go over a certain amount of water, they'll hit you with a $300 fine. And to keep things in perspective, a typical water bill out here is $60. So for a lot of people, myself included, it's substantial. You can spend you can do a lot of things with $300. It's a lot of pretty high-end meals you can get from here in town. So definitely want to make sure we get this addressed, the irrigation control clock, get that set properly before moving. Next item, sewer cleanout caps need to be painted. Usually we'll see these in a Christie box. Here, this builder doesn't, and that's fine. It's not the biggest deal in the world. We also don't want to be walking on these any more than we need to. And so if we get these painted, it protects them from the sun, and then it'll protect them from cracking and us having to do a larger scale repair in the future. Also helps prevent the smell of sewer gases coming out once they crack. So all the more reason just to have that painted. Next thing is recommending that they power wash and seal the driveway. From doing these, and the benefit of doing a good number of these is I can tell when a driveway is more beat up than other driveways. You know what I mean? And so when I see that, it lets me know like, hey, what's reasonable and what's unreasonable, and this is pretty unreasonable. Having all these pavers all just white, if you want to just call it that. Someone tries to say it's efflorescence. It's probably not efflorescence. It's more of like limestone or gypsum or just dirt, that's making it all white. So you want to have this power wash first, and once it's clean, you want to have it sealed. Once it's sealed, it has that nice wet look that makes it look really saturated and makes the house look incredible. And also, having it sealed protects it from oil stains. If all the pores in this thing are sealed up, there's not a lot of space for an oil stain or a leaking car to kind of ruin the look of these. So I recommend just having that power washed and sealed. Next thing, this is really minor, is just a hole in the stucco. I mean, get it painted and patched and stuff, or patched and painted. Not the biggest deal in the world. It's not going to take the house down or anything, but it's just good practice to do. I recommended that they seal around this outlet. I don't like bugs, and I don't like the idea of bugs living inside a wall cavity. This wall, based off its location, is not going to be insulated, so it's not going to help stop bugs from living inside of it. So the more chances we can stop bugs from crawling in and out of a wall cavity, the better. After that, the insulation, or the weather stripping outside this garage door was kind of folded up, and so in my opinion, it's more of a cosmetic item. This isn't really something that needs to be on a home inspection report, but someone brought it up and it bothers them, and I completely agree with it. In contrast, to let you guys know, I do put weather stripping on reports a lot if it's missing or if it's severely damaged. The reason I don't necessarily do it here is that you don't really have like a livable space on the other side of this door, right? And so we don't really need to protect the garage from getting wet, if that makes sense to you guys. People go and they hose down their garage all the time, where in contrast, they don't hose down their living room all the time. So just putting that in perspective, letting you know the importance of this. A lot of times we won't even see weather stripping on garage doors anymore, because it's not, the typical use for weather stripping is to protect a conditioned space from outside conditions. So you want to protect your living room from the hot summer wind. You don't really need to do that in a garage, because you're not spending money on air conditioning, and most people aren't watching TV in their garage and stuff like that. Anyways, on to the next item. I recommend sealing around these conduits for the T-Stat wire. And the reason why, I'll jump over, I can go to our lot. This one was kind of tricky because they put this in a weird place. Here's what I'm getting at. The other side of that conduit is this guy right here, and this is inside the house. And the bugs can literally just run straight through this and crawl out of here. Or, I'm sorry, there it is right there. It pops out of that hole right there. Freaking hate bugs. I absolutely hate them. And so if we can stop a highway of bugs marching in and out of here, from that conduit opening to this conduit opening, it's all the better. So I'll go back to our summary, and we'll go back into the heating and cooling portion. Verifying circuits are properly labeled. So I'll show you guys what that means in a second. Here, who knows what DED means? I sure don't, right? And I'm an inspector, right? I don't know what this means, and I doubt a homeowner would either. And I quite honestly, I asked a homeowner, do you know what DED stands for? They don't either. Probably stands for dedicated, but dedicated to where? So it's important for us to know and label where the circuits are going. And the reason why is that, let's say I have to do something with my dishwasher's circuit, right? And I turn this breaker off, and I go over there and it's actually not off, it's still on. I can get shocked and die, right? So that's why having all this stuff labeled is so important. The sub panel had breakers in the off position, but they would not, they didn't actually control anything because all the circuits were on in the home. So if the circuits aren't labeled properly, so here one example is that we don't know what DED means, right? Another example is that if, let's say, this disposal and this dishwasher are actually labeled the wrong way, and that can happen. Like, that's not a hard mistake to make. That's actually it's a pretty easy mistake to make. That's going to throw you for a huge loop later on. That's going to be a mess to figure out. So it's very, very, very important that if we have any inkling that this isn't labeled properly, that we have the builder go and label it properly and make sure that it is. That is a very serious issue. All right. Next item, I'm letting the homeowner know that the dishwasher hook wasn't hooked up, and so I can't test it. So they'll need to basically just run the dishwasher, and as far as they need to know is just make sure it doesn't leak, right? And they'll need to check on it periodically. What's one thing, and this is hard to imagine, and I would not have believed myself a few years ago, but things can leak sometimes. Like, just because something has a loose connection doesn't mean it's going to leak every time. And we naturally want something to never leak, right? So it's important that they check on this, day one, and then they check on it day two, and day three, and day four, and maybe on day five it'll leak. It doesn't sound believable, believe me, but there are times where I have tested a faucet and it'll leak, and I'll go grab the homeowner and I'll be like, hey, they show up like 2 hours later, the buyer show up 2 hours later, like, hey, look at this leak, and I'll go back and I'll try and recreate that leak, and I'm not trying to damage the home, just whatever setting I had the faucet on won't get it to leak again, and it's weird. So that's why I bring that up. That they'll want to check on this, and they'll want to check it more than once. Hard water stain, that's kind of the same idea. Just letting them know that there was a leak here at one point. I couldn't recreate it. This situation is obviously different because of the dishwasher, but whenever I see hard water stains in different sinks, cabinets, I make sure I bring it up and let them know. Here we have a poor finish around the shroud. That could be an air intrusion issue. Overcut cabinet. So this is where the sink is, right? And that's where that is. It's not hard to imagine water falling directly on the inside of that particle board and then warping it. So we want to have that addressed. This is one of the most important items on the entire inspection report, and there is a clog of some sort in the master bathroom shower drain. So here you can see that there's like mud or something sitting in there. We never see that. I have never seen that before. There's two really big lessons to learn with this. So first, as an inspector, make sure you never run water without you being in the same room, because it can clog up, and you'll have a massive, it'll just flood over. If there's nowhere for the water to go, it'll flood right out of the shower. And the next thing is for homeowners. I really recommend getting your homes inspected. So let's say the builder fixes this, right? But you have plumbing issues and sewer issues down the road. It's really important to note that this was an issue here, because what'll happen 2 years from now or whatever, 6-8 months or 2 years from now, is that the builder will say, hey, well, you have been, flushing whole chicken bones down your, kitchen sink. That's why your sewer's clogged. Where in reality, they had a massive, issue of some sort, whether this is grout or mud or something, that contributed to a pretty expensive issue down the road. So we want to document these things and let them know that they're not, that they are at fault to some extent. Here we got a missing grill in the toilet room. We got evidence of a previous leak here, and I just beat it to death a second ago. But this is important because I can't always recreate a leak. And the homeowner might be able to in the future. So they have to monitor this and just make sure that it doesn't leak. Here we have the hot water was shut off for the downstairs sink at the time of the inspection. We have a nail obstructing the weep hole. And so the reason why this is important, it's happened to one of my buddies. The weep hole was clogged in the window, right? And so the water wasn't leaving the window once it got into the windowsill, or the windowsill near the frame. And it overflowed and went into his house. So that's why this is important. If this weep hole is clogged, right, then it could cause water to overflow. And yeah, I would hope that this one catches it, but we have two for a reason, right? And we don't want to put too much stress on this guy. Another reason why this is important is that if this nail, depending on where it's driven, because I can't even imagine how, I honestly don't understand how this happened. I just, with the way things get put together, I don't know how this happened, right? But if this thing is clogged and this nail is driving into something, it could force water into an opening. Imagine, I hate to be so graphic, but imagine you got stabbed and then you walked into a shower, right? You got stabbed in the chest, and when you walked into like a shower, right? Well, that water would get inside your body, and we don't know exactly where it would go inside your body, but it would be inside. If it was next to an artery, that shower water is going to be flushing around on your entire body now, right? And it's kind of the same thing here. There are some protective measures we have that stop water from going in, but once it gets inside, it makes it much harder for us to tell where the water is going to be going. So that's why that's such a big issue. The fix should be relatively simple, but we want to naturally document that, hey, this was here at the time of the inspection. All right, grout outside the shower. I'm a big proponent of grout. Grout this up. Someone's gonna walk out here with a little too much water on their feet. Always happens, right? It's gonna get in here and it'll start making a stain on the ceiling underneath it. Right? That's how all that stuff kind of lays out. This header is lopsided, so it's easier to see in real life, but you guys can see it here. I don't know, call that 14 inches or 16 inches there. We'll call it 16 inches there, and we'll call that an extra 17 or 18 inches over here, right? So it's just out of line. One thing that would suck is that if the ceiling is out of line, and that's what's causing this this illusion we're seeing. I'm not gonna try and figure out the word, because then we really can't fix that. But hopefully, it's just a matter of us. We could probably just build this out. We call that furring out, or we can float that. We can float that and then make it even. Maybe they'll have a better idea than I do, but we want to probably get that fixed. It's not a structural issue by any means. It's a cosmetic issue. And then the last thing is that this pole for the shower or the closet rack isn't set level. So not a big deal, and I'll be the first to say that. But if it bothers a homeowner, it's important that we get it fixed for them. The only way that I can really see they fix this, and it's not my job to tell them how to fix it, but they could just core this out once again, because they took like a 1-inch core or something like that and pushed that through. They can just do a 1-inch core again, half an inch lower, and then sand it probably, or whatever, cut it out, sand it. So we just drop that down a little bit and we make that nice and level. So so that kind of concludes our whole review of an inspection report, of just the summary. In the full report, I go into a lot more detail. We get a lot more photos of the roof. We get photos of the irrigation assemblies and devices. We get garage doors. We get the whole exterior. We get the gas meter, outlets, water pressure, garage. We have a whole equipment room here. These guys have a supply side ventilation system, and so this forces you to bring in fresh air into your home and then treats it, which is awesome. Love that we are going to that. I absolutely love that. How to shut your water off, where your water meter is, was it spinning at the time. I always post a video to let the homeowner know, hey, we were straight, like we were fine at the time of the inspection, nothing to worry about here. Your water heater, they got a tankless gas fired. All the bathrooms underneath all the sinks, all the bedrooms, all the windows, closets, kitchen, loft areas, and that's about it. So that is a pretty typical home inspection report we do for new construction. A lot of the stuff on there is I don't want to say it's typical, because having a clogged shower drain is quite honestly not typical, but that's the kind of stuff that we look for when we're inspecting a brand new home. So if you guys liked this video, if you guys could like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. It helps me grow my business. If you are in the market for a home and would like a home inspection, I would love if you contacted me. We'd love to work with you. I'll have all my contact information in the description below. Thank you so much.